Give me a cue there, Jolene. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey-o,
All right, you're live.
hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey-o, 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 hey. Hey, 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 yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, cha, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, 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 yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, cha, ya, cha, ha, hoo, hey. Everybody out there in virtual land, welcome. This is the Native Wellness Power Hour, and we are on week 15. Do you believe that? Week 15. Oh my goodness! I remember when we first started, we were just talking about, hey, we got to do something. Let's just like we'll do this power hours until this ends, you know. And here we are, you know, week 15, and so. This is sponsored today from the Native Wellness Institute to bring our ancestral wisdoms, keep our ancestral wisdoms alive, and bring that wellness, that healing to the people. And with these power hours, this is just our response to when everything shut down and everything went online. And we just got together and said, what are we going to do? And so that's how this, the power hours is what we have been doing now. And we also have a sponsor called Indian Collective. We want to say thank you, Indian Collective, for sponsoring us and, you know, and helping us out to get that good energy, that good spirit out there to the people. My name is Gene Tagavan. So Kaya yo to Salk. Tana Kalkit Kalkando Alchotiti, which Katanaria had a Ishik to Hindi to Sak. Tanketawaya, Slagi Filipino Akhat Konatish. My name is Gene Tagaban. My Tlinket name is Kayao. I'm of the Dukde Ton clan, the Raven Freshwater Sockeye clan from Hoona, Alaska, the child of a Wishkata and Eagle Shark clan from Juan in Juneau, Alaska. I'm Cherokee, Tlinket, and Filipino. I'm a Cherokee Capino, and I tell people I like to eat my salmon with rice and cornbread, which is true. And so today's power hour is storytelling, traditional stories, or just storytelling. And that's just, you know, through our stories is how we taught and how we learned and how we mentored and, you know, and how we healed too. Stories is medicine. And so we just wanted to share a little bit of medicine with you, all of you out there today. And I just want to encourage all of you to like learn some stories, to tell some stories from your people, and, you know, and share those stories with your children, especially now. You're looking for something to do, you can just go online. There's so many storytellers out there telling stories, and just to find your stories and discover about who you are, because within those stories there's so many wisdoms, those pieces of wisdom and knowledge, you know, and to help us discover who we are as people, as Native people, Indigenous people, as human beings. And I truly, one thing I do believe is that global transformation lies in the wisdom and the traditions of those Indigenous people there. And those gems are in there. And so thanks for joining in and reach out to your friends, you know, and tell them about this program that we have every day at noon. And so today with storytelling, I got my brother here, Johan Atkinson, this guy's an incredible human being, man. I just learned so much. Come to love this brother here. And so Johan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Noah, Johan Duwayu Lakibu Depegu, Mescat, Alaska, Diwazago, Kitkahaki, Pawnee Nation. Hello, my name is Johan Atkinson. I am of the Wolf Clan of the Tsimshian Nation of Metlakatla, Alaska. I am living here, and I've grown up on the only reservation in the whole entire state of Alaska, which is Metlakatla, Alaska. My mother is of the Pawnee tribe. My father is of the Tsimshian tribe. I am a youth counselor here in my village and the director of the nonprofit Lawaida. We use our cultural wellness, our cultural activities to promote wellness in communities. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank Native Collective and Native Wellness for making this happen. You know, I raise my hands up to you all. This is a very great thing to be able to reach out to Indian country and share our culture in this way, you know, so much respect for that, you know, and I'm just honored to be here to be able to share a story that is originated from the Northwest Coast. And thank you all for tuning in.
Right on, Johan. And so, so what do you got for us this today? What kind of story do you have for us? You know, and why don't you just tell it for us, brother?
All right, yeah, I'd love to, Gene. Yeah, so the story that I want to tell is about a canoe journey, on the that took place between a young Tsimshian boy and an elder. Now, when I tell the story, I want to be able to share. I'm going to share little tips and tricks that I learned that I want to be able to help other people tell stories, because it's very important for us to tell these stories, because like you were saying, Gene, through our values and our culture and our lessons all are in our stories. So when I would tell my story, and I want anybody who has a drum to also do this. You put the drum on the side of your mouth, and it really amplifies your voice. And all the young kids, they love it. So long ago, there was this young Tsimshian boy. And the Tsimshian boy, he was becoming of age. He was becoming of age in his village. And when you are becoming of age in our communities, through the East Coast to the West Coast, to the North to the South, we all had that responsibility. We all had a role to honor and to fulfill in our communities, to make sure everyone in our community is taken care of. Well, this young boy, he was about 12 years old, and he was becoming of age, where he was becoming a young man, and his parents were letting him know, okay, son, you are becoming of age. You have a lot of responsibility on your life, and you have a very important role in this community, because we all do. Everybody has a role in their community. And this young boy, you know, he understood it, because he's seen all of his cousins, his brothers, and his friends, everybody take that transition from a young boy to a young man. But this young boy, he loved to play. Sometimes he wanted to play too much, and he wanted to. There was times where he wanted to sleep in a little bit too much. So in our ways, we learn from everybody in the community. Everybody in your, no matter if they were family or not, everybody helped one another, and it takes a village, and everybody knew this. So these parents of this young Tsimshian boy, they says, son, we want you to go spend time with your clan elder. Tomorrow, you are going to go visit your clan elder, and you're going to spend time with him. You're going to learn from him. You're going to get to know him, and he could show you many things. So this young Tsimshian boy, okay, I look forward to that. And he knew that he had to prepare, so he went home, got a good night's rest, and in the morning time, he went to seek out this elder in the middle of the village. He walks up to the middle of the village, to the longhouse, and he knocks on the door, and he heard from inside of the longhouse, Gene, come in. So he opens up the door, and there's this elder. He's by the fire. He's crouched down. He's warming his hands. He looks up, and he says, it's good to see you. I'm glad you are here. I was expecting you. And this young boy was like, you're expecting me? Okay, you know, and he was kind of surprised. He sat down, and he tells this elder, he says, I am here to learn from you. My parents have told me that you have much to teach me. and I want to spend the day with you, elder. So the elder was still warming his hands by the fire. He was drinking his warmth, his medicine, his devil's club. He says, first, how are you doing? How are you doing? And then they started talking. They started to get to know one another. And a relationship and a friendship was established. And they sat all afternoon just talking, just laughing, just getting to know one another. And this young boy, he was really starting to enjoy himself because this elder was telling him about how it was when he was a child and all the things, all the adventures that he'd been through. So it was getting late, and this elder said, tomorrow, I'm going to continue to not only tell you, but I'm going to show you. So tomorrow, meet me down by the tide line, down by the shoreline before daybreak, and we will continue our time together. And this young boy, he was having such a good time with this elder. He's, okay, all right, I'll be there. So he gets up and he thanks this elder for spending time with him and for building that relationship with him. And he goes home and tells his parents, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be spending time with my clan elder tomorrow before daybreak. So I'm going to go and get a good night's rest. So he packs his dried fish, his berries, and he grabs his spear and his bow and arrow, and because he has no idea what's going to take place. So he wants to be ready. So he goes to sleep early. Morning time comes around, and he wakes up. The sun still has not begun to come over the horizon. He jumps up out of bed, runs down to the tide line, and he wants to make a good impression to this elder, and he wants to beat him there. But as he walks up to the tide line, the elder is there, standing next to a canoe, a 12-foot canoe, and he has his arm rested on the canoe, and he's sipping his devil's club. He was wide awake like he was there for hours. And he says, hello, young man. And Doix, and thank you for coming down today. Like I said, today I'm not going to show you, or I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to show you the teachings that are very important to me and important to our village. And just when he said that, the nice day, they started seeing darker clouds come over the sky, and the wind started picking up, and they started feeling rain come down on their face. And being out in the elements like that was no problem for the indigenous peoples, no problem. This young man was standing there. He was eager to spend that day with that elder. He said, okay, what are we gonna do, elder? So they started talking about everything that they discussed the day before. And as they were talking, the wind started blowing a little harder.
Jean, you're on mute.
Oops, there we go. Looks like Johan froze there, and it's like in mid-sentence about how the wind started to come up, and here he is. He's back.
There you go. So
the wind was coming up, and
the wind was coming up, and he told this elder, "No, we are. It's common knowledge for everybody in the coast to not go out in the storm. We're gonna wait for the storm to pass." And the elder says, "No, today we are gonna go on a canoe journey, and I want you to trust me." And in our ways, we always respect our elders. We always respect what our elders have to say, their teachings. And if they're telling you something, it's a reason. So this elder, he was inviting, hey, Roger.
Hey.
So this elder, he tells this young man to jump in this canoe. And as the storm was picking up, he grabbed this young Tsimshian boy grabbed his paddle, and he was hesitant of getting in the canoe. He gets in the canoe and he sits up in the bow of the canoe. And the weather just started picking up, really picking up. And the elder says, now we will begin our journey. And he jumps in the tam land seat, in the steersman seat. And he uses his paddle to push off. And they're both in the canoe now. And the weather instantly takes hold of the canoe. And the only thing they could do is keep that canoe with the weather. And they're riding the waves, and they're paddling. And it's common knowledge for when you're in a canoe, you have to pull hard. You got to keep the canoe in line with the weather. Because if you take the weather broadside, you'll capsize. So now the waves are really picking up, going up on the waves and slamming back down. And this young Tsimshian boy, he was getting kind of worried. And he turns around and he says, Elder, what are we doing? I could barely see the shoreline. What are we doing? And the weather's taking a hold, and the rain's coming down. And the elder, he's back there staring. And he says, you know what we need to do? We need to work together if we want to get through this. And he's grabbing a steering paddle, and with all his might, he's steering that paddle, or that canoe, keeping it straight with the weather. And they're paddling. Hours go by. And this young boy, he's getting fatigued, and he's getting really tired. And his paddle seems like it's 100 pounds. Every time he lifts it up, it gets heavier and heavier. So as they're paddling out and the storm takes them straight out to the ocean, they can start seeing the shoreline. It's starting to become visible. And this motivates him. He goes, we're almost there. We got to get out of the storm. And he's paddling, and he's getting closer and closer to the shoreline. Now 7-8 hours go by paddling. His shoulders and his chest are cramping up, and his hands on his paddle are almost feel like they cannot be undone unless you pry your fingers off. And he's getting closer to the shoreline. And that shoreline, as it gets closer and closer, the weather starts to calm down. And the dark clouds start to part. And the rain stops falling. And the waves start to flatten. And this young boy, when he sees this, he is very relieved. Oh, yes. It's because he doesn't have to paddle as hard. He just slow paddles. And he looks back and goes, Elder, we made it. We made it. And he could barely sit up in his seat. And then the weather comes to a dead stop. It's nice out. There's no wind. It's flat calm. And they're about half an hour from the shoreline. And this young boy, he stops paddling, and he rests his paddle on his lap, and he's catching his breath and trying to gain his strength. And he goes, Elder, why did we go through that storm? That was dangerous. I'm so tired. And the elder, he says, young Tsimshian boy, turn around. Turn around. I got one more thing to show you. So he turns around and he faces the elder. And the elder says, I want you to stand up in that seat. Stand up in the bow of the canoe. And the bow is the front part of the canoe. So this young Tsimshian boy, he goes, stand up. I could barely even sit up. And you want me to stand up? He goes, I want you to stand up in the bow of that canoe. I got something else to show you. So he knew that if an elder tells us twice, they already told us one time too many. So he gets up in the canoe and he stands up in the bow, and he has to catch his balance, because if you're ever in a canoe, you gotta it's always moving from the ocean. He finds that balance. And once he finds that balance, he looks at the elder and says, okay, I'm standing up in the canoe. Now what? And the elder says, remember all the stories I told you? Well, I was telling you. And now I told you I'm going to show you. I got one more thing to show you. And the elder grabs both sides of the canoe and he rocks that canoe and he sends that young Tsimshian boy flying in the water. Oh, and the young Tsimshian boy, he's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's trying to swim toward the canoe. And as he's swimming toward the canoe, that elder, he would take his paddle and just go out of his distance. And he's trying to grab hold. And like, elder, what are you doing? Get me out of here. And he keeps on paddling in reverse just out of the distance of where he was able to grab, that young boy was able to grab the canoe. And he's treading water and he's already fatigued. He's so tired. And he goes, elder, get me out of the water. And just then the elder could see that he wasn't able to stay above the water any longer. So the elder grabs his paddle. And it's a red cedar paddle, and the red cedar is very buoyant. And he throws the paddle into water. And that young boy, he grabs the paddle and he grabs it in his arms, and it's helping him stay afloat. And he's treading water, and he's using that extra help that he has to swim toward the canoe again. He goes, get me out of the water, get me out of the water. And the elder does the same thing. He paddles in reverse, just out of his grasp, just out of his reaching distance. And he does this again. And then even with that paddle, that young boy wasn't able to stay above the water. And the elder could see this. So he paddles over. And when that young boy didn't have anything left in him, that elder reached down and he grabs him, lifts him up out of the water, puts him in the canoe. And this young boy, he's laying down in his canoe, he's catching his breath and barely even holding his head up. And he said, why did you do that, elder? Why did you do that? I almost died. And the elder says, when you catch your breath, I want you to sit up. I got something to tell you. So he's catching his breath and he finally sits up and he's looking at this elder. He's thinking, this elder is going to kill me. He's crazy. What is he doing? And the elder, he goes, now that I got your attention. And for the last 24 hours, everything that I have not only told you, but showed you, it's going to help you in your life. When you first came to my longhouse, you didn't know who I was. And we didn't know one another, but we sat down and we got to know one another. We sat down, and as my role as an adult, as an elder, is to teach you. And as your role as a young man is to learn and to always have an open heart and an open mind and always willing to learn. Because no matter how old you get, no matter how far you are on your path, you could always learn more. And then when I was able to see that you were taking this in and you were doing this, then you went home. I told you to come down to the shoreline and join me. When you came down, you seen the canoe. And the storm started coming in. And you were hesitant on going on the canoe journey, going out on the ocean in the storm. But you did it. Because I want to let you know that in our lives, there's going to be storms. There's going to be times where we're scared. There's going to be times where you don't want to jump in that canoe and move forward. But through those storms, I want you to have that courage to move through that storms. Because when we hit those storms in our life, they're not going to stop us. So, and as young Tsimshian boy, he started to understand what this elder was saying. And he says, and when we were out on that storm and you were paddling for half the day, I could see that you were tired. And that paddle, that light red cedar paddle started to get heavier and heavier. And pretty soon it felt like 100 pounds. And no matter how hard it got, No matter how tired you were, you kept on pulling. You still grabbed hold, you were still grabbing that paddle, and you were digging into the water with everything you had. And that's what you have to do in your life. No matter how big the waves, no matter how bad the storm, you always move forward. You give it your all, and you prove to yourself that you can get through any storm. You prove to yourself that you have what it takes to get through the storm. And then once we were able to reach this tide line, this shoreline, I seen how tired you were. You were barely, you could barely sit up in your canoe, in your seat. And when I told you to stand up in the bow of the canoe, it took you a while to find that balance on your seat when you were standing. And that's what we have to do when we're entering in new environments. We have to find that balance, find what works for you. And once you found that balance, you were able to speak to me. Once you found that balance, you were able to ask me a question, wanting to learn, wanting to know more. And that young Tsimshian boy, he was resting up against his paddle. He caught his breath, and he was starting to understand what the elder was saying. Now the elder didn't seem so crazy now. And then the elder says, and when you fell overboard, sometimes in our lives we fall. And sometimes it feels like that we can't get back up. But when you fell into the water and you felt like that you could not stay above water any longer, I gave you your paddle and you received that help. You took that help and you held it close. Because sometimes in our life, asking for help can be some of the hardest thing that we could ever do. But I want you to always be willing to accept that help when you need it. Because there's a lot of people in this world that will always help you. You just have to ask for it. You have to receive it. Put away your pride and grab that paddle and hold it close. And when I seen that you weren't able to stay above the water anymore, I reached down and I grabbed you and I pulled you up out of the water. And I want to let you know that through your whole entire life, you will always have people that want to see you succeed, want to see you get back up. You will always have people to lift you up. And I never, ever want you to forget that. So we're going to stay here on this tide line, young Tsimshian boy, until you start to realize what we went through in this canoe journey and how you could not only learn this, but how you could also teach this. And he says, we're going to stay here as long as we have to. And if you want to stand up on the bow again, we could do that too. So the young Tsimshian boy, he was eating his dried fish, trying to gain his strength back. And he looked back at the elder, he goes, I understand what you were saying. I understand that in our lives, we're gonna run into storms. And no matter how bad the storm, we have to push through it. I understand that I have to find that balance in my life to continue on my path. I understand that I have to be willing to receive help and that everybody around me, there are many people in this world that want to see me succeed. I understand, elder. And the elder, he's okay, time to go home. And they went back to their village. Beautiful sunny skies.
Very nice. Very good.
Ganatish. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Johan, with that story. Sounds like even with that story that you may have a little bit of experience with that real life experience with that too, eh?
Yeah, I do actually, but that's a whole nother story.
It usually is. Hey, and thank you, brother. Hey, I just want to just welcome Fern and Roger. You know, we had you on last time, you know, and thank you for your willingness to come back on and actually this time to share a story or two. And so, goodness, geez, thank you, welcome, welcome, welcome. And so maybe share with us, with the those who are out there, a little bit of who you are, and you know, and if you have a story to share, please, you know, and offer it to the people.
Well, I'll introduce myself first because I think Fern was moved to tell a story by your story. So I she's almost like muscling me off the chair. So my name is Roger Fernandez, Lower Elwha, Nexclaim. We're called the Clallam people by the white folks because they apparently couldn't say Nexclaim, so they called us Clallam. But we are the strong people. And I could tell you a story why we're better than everyone else, but I'm not going to do that now, how we got our name. And I'm a storyteller artist, and I love the idea of these stories being shared in a way that's healing. I was taught that storytelling is teaching. That's why I work with children in stories, but storytelling is healing. That's why I like to work with adults with stories, because we need that assurance somewhere in here that everything's all right. Everything will be all right. The stories keep reminding us everything will be all right because the elders send their messages to us through their stories. So I'll let Fern go first because she keeps elbowing me here. Okay, I'll let you do it. Okay.
You guys are storytellers. You know how it is. Hearing stories stimulates you and it makes you think of the stories that you know and carry because they reference one another. Even from places far away, those stories reference one another. But my name is Fern Naomi Renville. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate. That is an Eastern Dakota band based on the Lake Traverse Reservation in South Dakota. The traditional name of my band was Sisseton. Our people were the keepers of plant medicine for the Dakota Nation. We were scooped up with the Wahpeton, the Wahpeton, plopped over on Lake Traverse and said, now you guys are all Sisseton Wahpeton. I'm a storyteller and a theater artist and have been following the politics in my home state with my head is totally spinning because of things that are happening in South Dakota that I never imagined in my lifetime I would witness. And if you don't know, South Dakota is like the Mississippi of the North. It is actually competes with North Dakota for that title, but it is a place where by virtue of not a lot of people living there, you don't have to be exposed to ideas that you're uncomfortable with if you don't want to. Here on the West Coast, because of the numbers of people that live here in this urban areas all along the coast, we're forced to hear ideas that are new to us, that are unfamiliar to us, to meet people who come from other places. And it broadens our thinking and helps us to be more accepting and tolerant. That is not the situation in South Dakota. There's a state of apartheid that exists there where white people live in their sphere, Native people live in theirs. You can go weeks without seeing a white person if you want to in South Dakota, and vice versa. And so it's like ideas, progressive ideas come to the state rather late. And so watching Harold Fraser, who's the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, talk about Rushmore and about the Sioux right to be the arbiter of this has got me thinking a lot about rocks and stone. And in Lakota Dakota mythology, everything begins with stone. In fact, the for opening lines of both of our origin stories are, in the beginning, there was Ea, the rock, who gives, he's a huge, powerless, powerful, amorphous being who gives all his power to a new entity, Mother Earth, to give her the power. And then he becomes just a rock, powerless, and tumbles to earth and lives on her. And that is why, among other things, Lakota people call rocks the grandfathers, because they are these ancient beings who gave life to earth. Now, it's really funny because in recent years, I've partnered with folks at the UW around education projects. And one of the areas of research that people are looking at with a lot of interest is the endolithic biome, the rocks all over the earth hold communities of bacteria that scientists, until fairly recently, Western scientists that is, did not know existed. And these are ancient species that have been around since the dawn of time. And so that idea that you can just blow up a mountain, you can blow up rocks and you've killed nothing. It's just this inert, inanimate material is foreign to Lakota Dakota thinking, but it's also scientifically, according to the Western science, completely bogus. Rock is actually an incredibly generous host of life. And so I thought I was moved to tell the story of Stone Boy, not Stoned Boy, Stone Boy. And this is a part of our cosmology of continuing on that. So I'm going to just start right out. Ehana, long ago, in an earlier age of man. In an earlier age of man, 4 brothers lived. These 4 brothers lived in a lodge with their sister. Now, their sister had not married because she was so attached to her brothers and her brothers to she. They were all so happy together. Now, the young woman living with her brothers would wait at home and take care of all of the things that needed doing around the lodge while her brothers hunted in the daytime. These 4 brothers would go out every morning and each would set off on a different path, one to the north, one to the south, one to the west, one to the east. And so one day, at the end of the day, one of the brothers did not return. The brother from the east did not return. Everyone wondered, where is he? Did he get injured? What's going on? There was nothing to do though, except go to sleep. He didn't show up at all. The next morning, the 3 brothers set out. They set out because everyone still needed to eat. And so they set out, but they said, we will go on his path and we will look for him while we hunt. Now, at the end of that day, only 2 brothers returned. And on the next day, just 1 brother. Now, by now, the younger sister was beside herself. When on the 4th day, her youngest brother prepared to go out hunting and looking for his brothers, she begged him, please don't go, stay. I don't want you to go too. I can't bear to lose you. But he had to go see. He knew, and he had to hunt. They must eat. And so off he went. And he did not return at the end of the day. And days passed and none of them returned. And this sister grew desperate. She was heartbroken. She couldn't eat. She couldn't drink. All she could do was walk around feeling miserable, crying. She was doing just that. She was walking and crying. She was thirsty. She didn't have any water. She reached down and picked up a little pebble and put it in her mouth and sucked on it to try and relieve her thirst. She was crying so hard though, that she accidentally swallowed that pebble. She swallowed that pebble. And in this way, that young woman became pregnant. And in a much shorter than the usual time that it takes to grow a baby, she gave birth. Why, just 4 days later. And so 4 days later, this young mother had a newborn, but she was heartbroken, depressed. She had postpartum depression. I don't have anything left to give. I can't take care of you. I don't have any strength. And she took that newborn baby and she carried him outside her lodge and laid him on the ground. Well, that little baby didn't stay out there. Why, he crawled back in. He crawled in and he looked to be about 2 winters old now. She looked at him, now a toddler, and said, "No, I'm too exhausted. I'm heartbroken. I'm too tired to take care of you." And she carried that toddler and put him outside the door. Now, he did return again. This time he walked in, and he was a boy, 7 winters old. She said, "No, no, somebody else will have to take care of you. Some other person in the village will take responsibility for you because I cannot." And she took that boy and she could barely lift him, but she pushed him out of the doorway. But in he walked. He walked back in. And this time he was a full-grown young man, just reached manhood. And this time his mother said, "Oh, well, I'd love to have you live with me, but you need to have some clothes." And so the young man walked out of the lodge and walked right back in. And he was dressed in fine buckskins. And then his mother said to him, "Well, it looks like you can take care of me instead of me taking care of you. But you have no bow, no arrow, no tools." And so that young man, Stone Boy, walked out of the lodge and then came back in. And this time he had a fine bow and quiver full of arrows. And so his mother was accepting and happy. And once her mind wrapped around this new reality, she started to adjust. She was so happy not to be alone anymore, as you can imagine. And her young son, Stone Boy, was very skilled as a hunter. And so she ate well. And so things seemed to be peaceful and happy. But then Stone Boy said to his mother, "Mother, this does not seem natural. Why do we have no relatives in our lodge? Why is it just the 2 of us?" And this young woman said, "It's because your uncles have disappeared. You used to have 4 uncles. I didn't live here alone. They disappeared though, one by one, and I cannot say what happened to them." Now, Stone Boy was intrigued to learn that he had 4 uncles, and he became determined that he would discover what had happened to them and help them and bring them home if this was possible. And so he set out. Of course, Stone Boy's mother was heartbroken. She was desperate. "Please don't go. No, no, I'm afraid you won't come back too." But he had to go. And so he said his farewells and he promised his mother he would return. And off he went. Now he walked for 4 days to the north until he came across a lodge so old that the skins were black with smoke. And standing in front of this lodge was an old woman. Now this was no ordinary old woman. This woman was tall. She was at least twice as tall as Stone Boy, a full-grown man. She also was bent over and looked ancient. Now, Stone Boy, when he saw her, had a strange feeling. His instincts told him, "This one, watch her." And so when she called out to him, young man, oh, come closer to this old cushy, this old grandma, let me pinch your cheeks. He came a little closer, but not close enough for her to pinch his cheeks. But he did get close enough for her to say, oh, you're strong, and my back is so sore. Oh, young man, if only you would massage my back with the bottoms of your feet. If you walked on my back, it would feel so good. Please, won't you do that for an old cushy? All right, said Stoneboy. And so that old woman laid down on the ground, and Stoneboy came forward and stepped carefully onto her back. Now that he was up close, he could see that barely concealed beneath her long, tangly white hair, there were sharp bones sticking out of her spine. She had a row of razor-sharp spines down her spinal column. And he could see that if she shook him, he would fall on those spines and be split in half. And so she said, you need to start massaging. It hurts. Come on, move. And he started to dance with his feet. And she started to shake, trying to shake him loose. Just then, he leapt with all his strength on to her neck. And then with all his strength, he landed on her head and he crushed her to death. And so that old woman, who was a witch, in case you didn't figure that part out, was dead. Oh, but what is that? He saw then that leaning against the side of this old woman's lodge were 4 bundles. They were like desiccated bundles of skin and sticks, or he came up close. They were human bones wrapped in dried skin. Oh, those must be my uncles, he said. And he was heartbroken to think that it was too late and he could do nothing to help his uncles. Just then he heard a voice. He heard a voice. It was the voice of Ea, the spirit who lives in the rock. Now Ea no longer possesses the powers that once created the earth and all of the universe. But Ea still has wisdom and insight and experience. Ea said, young man, go down to the stream and gather 12 willow branches. Bring them back over here on the banks. Bend them down and build a little lodge like a beehive, and then cover them with skins. And then build a hot, hot fire. And find the grandfather stones, and put us in the fire, and let us get red hot. And when they are red, red hot, take them into that little lodge and pour water over them and burn cedar on them. And bring these 4 bundles, your uncles, into the lodge with you. And so Stoneboy, not knowing why exactly he was being asked to do this, did so. He went and gathered 12 branches, willow branches down by the water. He bent them into a little lodge and covered them with skin and built a hot fire and found the grandfather stones and put them in the fire. And when they were red hot, he brought them into that little lodge and he put cedar on them so that the smoke filled it. And then he poured water on it so that steam filled it. And those 4 bundles, he had also brought them in. So as that steam filled the air, Stoneboy started to sing a song. He started to sing a holy song. And as he sang, other voices joined him. 4 voices joined him, so that by the end of that round of singing and sweat, when Stoneboy flung back the door of the little lodge, little sweat lodge, he could see that in the lodge with him were his 4 uncles. And so they closed that lodge and they had 3 more rounds of singing. And Stone Boy said to the stone, "Grandfather Stone, thank you. You gave us life. You created the world. And now you have shown me how to bring my uncles back to life. Thank you. And you have shown us how, by using these stones, we can purify ourselves this way. Thank you." And from that day forward, the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota people have kept alive the Sweat Lodge. And in it, our spirits are renewed with the grandfathers and the grandmothers. And that's a story from the Lakota Dakota tradition. And I'm going to say that's also in honor of my father and brothers, who are just the latest in an unbroken chain of thousands of Oceti Sakowin community members who have kept alive the Inipi tradition for our people.
Ganachish, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good story. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure to tell it.
Ah,
It is. I know this is never a competition, but I just feel like the 2 tellers that have told we can. I said, okay, Raj, you got to up your game a little bit.
He's got to juggle eyeballs.
He's got to juggle eyeballs, set fire to my hair or something. You know, she oftentimes is. I know for all storytellers, you hear someone telling a story from another tribe, and you say, "Wait a minute, we tell that same story. What's going on?" And she was telling the story. Our people, the Naxkalayan people, the Klallam people, tell a story. I'll try to make it shorter because I know you have a time limit here, and I can make it work if that's okay. But
yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it
our
work.
question
Man.
is always, we have stories of women going to the sky world, having a baby, returning. Ferns people have a story of women going to the sky world, having a baby, returning. That baby becomes a changer, becomes Starman.
He's the Wichapi Himpai, a fallen star boy. He brings plant medicine to the Dakota people.
So well, how come these stories are almost exactly the same? And so as she was telling the story, I said, I know one from our people that goes like this, that there was once a family that lived in a longhouse, and there were 5 brothers and a sister and the mother. And the sister would sometimes go out by herself into the woods, and one time she didn't return. And the family, where is she? Where is she? And they began to look for her, and they couldn't find her. She had been taken by a monster. And he appeared, she went with him because he appeared to be a human. But when he got her to his house, he turned into a monster, which was really a mountain lion. So he was a mountain lion monster. And he had a sharp tail that had a like a spear at the end of it. So he was a monster. And he said, "You're my wife now. You're gonna live with me, have my children, take care of me." And so they had a child, and the baby had 2 faces. One face was a human face, the other was the face of the monster. And so the baby had 2 faces. Now the brothers, they wanted to find their sister. They knew that she was not dead, that someone had taken her. So the oldest brother said, "I'll go look for my sister." And he went off to look for her, follow the trail, came to this house way up in the mountains. And he went in. Now the monster would leave every morning to go hunting. And when he would leave, to make sure his wife, the young woman, would never leave, he would put her on a stump in the house and apply pitch. So she was now glued to that stump, but she couldn't leave. And so that's what he did to her every day. So she would be stuck there holding that baby, taking care of it, but she couldn't leave the house. Well, the brother came in to this house. The monster was gone. And he said, sister, I've been looking for you. I'm happy I found you. Come on, let's go." She said, "You must leave, brother. Please leave. This house belongs to a monster, my husband. And if he finds you here, he will kill you. So please leave. We'll find another way to get me home. We'll find another way, but you must leave right now. Please." She's begging him. And so he leaves. "I'm going to go home. I'll tell my other brothers. Maybe together we can do something to help our sister." So he leaves, heading back down the trails, back to his home. The monster returns, the mountain lion returns and says, "I smell a human. A human's been in this house. Has one of your family been here?" And she says, no one's been here. But the baby says, "My uncle was here. My uncle was here." And so the monster says to the young woman, "Did you offer him food?" She says, "No, you bring the food, and we have no food in the house until you return." He says, "Oh, I'm going to give him some deer meat. I'll give him some deer meat." And so he runs out, tracks the brother down to the trail. and says, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law. And he turns around, he says, I have something for you. And he reaches out his hand, and the brother reaches for it, and he takes a claw and cuts him open in his chest, tears out his heart, and he eats it. Takes the body, throws him to the woods. That brother is gone. Again, to shorten the story, the next brother goes, the same thing happens, finds his sister, but she says, you must leave, you must leave. And the mountain lion monster, well, the little baby says, my uncle was here, my uncle was here. And so the monster follows the other brother, the next brother, and cuts him open and kills him. And then the next and the next and the next, till all the brothers are gone. Now the mother is alone. She lost her daughter, and now all of her brothers, excuse me, all of her sons, they're all gone now. And so she's crying and crying and crying. She's crying. And because she's crying, she has tears and she has mucus coming out of her nose, strings of it. And she's crying and crying, shaking her head, and the mucus falls to the ground. The next day she comes and sees where the mucus fell. There's a baby laying there. The baby is called Mucus Baby. And she picks it up, and that little baby, as in Fern's story, grows very quickly. Within a few days, he's now a young man. And he says, where's my family? Where's my brothers? Where's my sister? And the mother says, they disappeared. Something took them away. I don't know where they are. That's why I cry all the time now. And he said, I'm going to go find them. I'll find them. And she says, no, something terrible happened. You stay here with me. I don't want to lose you too. He says, I will find them. And he goes and makes himself a bow and arrow, a powerful bow and arrow. And he's traveling up the mountains, and he makes a camp for one night, and he falls asleep. And in his dream, he is told in his dream by a voice to take a stone, a flat stone, and tie it to your chest. Take a flat stone and tie it to your back. And so he does this. And now there's stones underneath his clothing that he's wearing. He also comes to the same house. He comes to the same house and goes in. Sister, I've been looking for you. I found you. She says, who are you? I don't know who you are. She says, I am Mucus Boy. I came from your mother's tears. I'm Mucus Boy, but you're my family, and I've come to look for you, to save you, and to find my brothers. She says, oh, your brothers are dead. He says, I will help them. She said, but the monster is coming now. The monster is coming. You must leave. You must leave now. He says, I'm not leaving. I'm not afraid of the monster. And so the monster is coming in the house. Mucus Boy hide behind one of the house posts. And the monster comes in again, the same thing, sniffs the air. I smell a human. Was any of your family here? She says, no, none of my family. And he says, I smelled him. He's here now. Where is he? And the young man, Mucus Boy, begins to laugh. He can hear him laughing in the darkness of the house behind the house post. And so he comes out and says, I am her brother. I've come to take her away from you. I've come to find my brothers. And the monster says, oh, are you hungry? Let me give you some food. And he reaches out some food, and he tries to cut him open with his claw, but he's wearing a stone here and breaks that claw. Then the mountain lion jumps around him and tries to cut his back open to take his heart out, but he breaks another claw. And then the young man takes out his bow and arrow and shoots the monster and kills it. And so he frees his sister from the log, and they go out and they find the bodies of their brothers. Now he had cut open that mountain lion monster, and out of it he took the hearts that he found within it, 5 hearts. And he took them out, and he found his brothers laying in the brush, almost at the same spot. And he found them, and he put their hearts back in, and sang a powerful song, and they came back to life. They say the oldest brother, who was the one who was the first victim of that monster, it took a long time for him to heal him, but he probably brought him back to life too. Now he returned to his village. This is kind of the interesting, I think is an interesting ending to this story. He returns to his village, and he has saved his family. He has saved his brother and his sister. So everyone is celebrating. But one of the children says, you come from the mucus of your mother. You come from the mucus of your mother. And so he was offended. He was offended by that name he was given by that little kid. And so he left and never returned. And so that story is called Mucus Boy. And not that it's the same story as what Fern said, but there's so many similarities about going off to look for brothers, about the hearts of people, that kind of a thing. So again, I look at these stories I hear, and I'm just in awe that our ancestors were sharing these stories with each other, or they dreamed them together. That was, to me, there's this idea that the reason we seem to tell the same stories is, one, we travel a lot, stories travel with us, and we tell the story in Oklahoma or in Canada, wherever it is, and they hear our story, but we hear their story and bring them back with us. So the stories are traveling with us. That's called diffusion. We travel, we take the stories with us. But the other one is more, I guess you would say, spiritual, that we humans all share the same deep, deep spirit together as a life, as living humans. And because of that, we share the same dreams. Because of that, we share the same stories. And that one makes probably more sense to me. that we have the same questions and we give the stories of the same answers. So that story of Mucus Boy and Stone Boy, they, in many ways, they follow the same story path. But again, knowing the story and understanding the story, those are two different things. So I'm still thinking about that story of Mucus Boy, and I'm still thinking about the Two-Faced. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the Two-Faced baby, the little girl, they brought her back. So he got the sister, and the sister carried her baby back to the village with her. And when they got there, that little baby was wild and would not listen. In fact, that little baby killed 2 other children. And so they said, well, we got to get rid of this baby. So they threw into a fire. They threw into a fire, but the fire did not hurt her. And she jumped out of the fire and ran to the woods, and she was never seen again. I forgot that part. But anyway, I was so excited to tell that story.
That's quite the little detail.
Gonna cheese. I know you rushed that story because you were looking at the time too. And so
Oh,
it's
I
like,
got 1 minute over. Sorry.
no worries. Because I'm gonna. Hey, Jillian, can you hear me? Jillian's our producer here. And,
Yeah, I can hear you.
hey, can I have it like about 5 more minutes here?
Sure. Keep going.
Oh,
Awesome.
Okay.
Pull
The
your
voice
elder
from-
rank, Gene. Pull your elder rank, man.
And so thank you so much, because it just got me going here and thinking about if there's a way to put together a native storytelling festival, virtual native storytelling festival. I think it'd be awesome, beautiful to get there, because there's so many stories that I just want to. After hearing you, like you said, Fern, it's like you get inspired. You hear another teller say, "Oh, I know a story like this," and like you both your stories there. I know a story like that as well, and just to have these storytellers on the same screen like this is bouncing these ideas, and just like, hey, it reminds me of a story, how it is. And so I just want to say thank you, and I just want to I like to share a quick little story myself, because it's one of those stories is I truly believe that our stories are just floating in the air. They're in that vibration, and our ancestors are around us, and they're constantly whispering to us, in daytime or in dreams, this I like what you said, Fern, about the stardust and the Milky Way, and all those other things. But the story came to me in a dream, and it was inspired. I listened to as Johan shared his story. And so the story goes that there was once a village, and this village was living there next to at the headwaters, at the opening of this glacier, beautiful glacier. And then the people themselves too, they had a relationship with everything around them. They had a relationship with the whales. And oftentimes they weren't hunters of the whales, but they would go out there and they would play games. Instead of hunting, they go out there on the end of their canoes, and instead of like hunting them, they like go there and just gently tap them. It was as if they were playing a game of tag. And they just go out there and just tap them. And then each year, generations of the whales would come by just to come and just to play with the people, play this here game of tag with the people. And the people themselves, it became an initiation with the young, those who were in the canoes. And the elders would be in the back and say, paddle harder, pull, here it comes, here it goes. Oh, I know this one. Here's a tough one to get. And they just try to tap them, and they dive down, and they formed this relationship. But it was one year that the glacier started to advance forward, faster. And the whole valley, the water started to rise up. And the village itself started to flood. And the people knew that they would have to find a new location for their village. And so it was the young men and the older men, the warriors, who took all the canoes, and they spread out in different directions to find a new location for their village. And as they were gone, the water started to rise up. And so all that were left in the village were the young ones, the women, and the elders. And so they took all their most precious possessions, and they placed those possessions out on the spit, the only thing that was left that was not covered by the water. And they knew that it could be the overnight or even the next day that water would rise over that spit. and they would have no place to go. And so the people, they prayed that night. The elders, they sang songs, they made offerings. They made the fire plate and placed it out there. And so the next morning when they woke up, as the water was rising up, 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 they went out there and opened their eyes, and there are 4 canoes right there on that spit. Nobody knew where they came from. Where did these canoes come from? Everybody asked each other. I don't know. I don't know. But let's stop asking questions and let's load up all of our precious objects. And they put all the regalia, all their food supplies, their children, everybody loaded up into those canoes. And they grabbed only a couple paddles that were in there, and they pushed those canoes back into the water. And they're large canoes, and they're amazed at how easily these canoes could move, as if they were moving by themselves. And then they started to pull in the water. And it was as if the canoes themselves knew what direction to go, as if they had a mind of their own, and they just kept pulling and going through the water, up and over through the waves. And they just, after a while, they just put their paddles back in the canoe and allowed the canoes to go where they needed to go. And they came up to the men, the warriors of the village. And the men would go, where did these canoes come from? How did you get here? We'll talk about that later. Did you find a place for the village? And they said, yes, it's a beautiful place. There's another valley over there. There's a beautiful river. Many salmon are going up that river. Deer are coming through. We got mountain goat. We got moose. We have seal. There's plenty. There's plenty for us. It will be a good location for our people, for the future generations. And so they went there in these canoes, and they went to this new location. And everyone looked around and said, yes. And it felt good, not only in their minds, but their hearts and their spirits, that this is our new home. Yes. So they took and they unloaded all the canoes, even those 4 that they had no idea where they came from. And when everyone was finally settled down, it took time. Now, tell us, where did these canoes come from? And as they turned and looked at those canoes, they were gone. And swimming away were 4 whales. So just like that, it's like we are being supported in so many ways, even by the unseen, and that even in this day today, where we have to take things so literal, we see this, but that those ancestors and that spirit is still supporting us, holding us up. Suddenly they'll appear, and maybe they'll just help us travel in a place, in a direction, if we allow ourselves to trust. And so thank you, my relatives. Thank you for coming on just to share some story, share some spirit with the people, to help the people heal, because that's what this is about. Healing, especially in this time today, and in this world. We need so much healing. And I totally believe that as Indigenous Native peoples, that healing and that transformation, global transformation, lies there within the wisdom of our stories, within the wisdom of our ways. It's there. And to be present to it and to teach it. Inferno Roger, you've been running these programs, consistently. I just want to, again, that's that discipline to do that. Thank you for being out there, and even this time, and I know it's not easy. So my hands go up to you. Thank you. And Johan, in your village, and you're getting out there and telling the stories, sharing your music, and working for the people, and so many others out there too. I said, good night to all of you, just to bring that healing to all the people. So if we can continue on with this and just bring, again, it's about that healing and bring that spirit, that love for the people. And so Any last words before we end this program? This moment, and what it is this moment. And any last words that you'd like to share?
I just want to thank Fern and Roger. Those were beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing those words and those stories with everyone, and Gina as well. You know, it's always an honor to be able to share a space with you all. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you, Johan. Same. It is always a pleasure to get to listen to a story and just have my brain riff off of that. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jean, for sharing that story.
Yeah.
As Gonechi showed you the short version of it too. So, as we go, we're storytellers, man. We're storytellers. So our storyteller support group.
Our stories and the clocks our stories and the clocks don't match. They don't line up at all. just get an open mic for however long you can.
Exactly.
You know, go. All right.
So this program was sponsored by the Indian Collective, and we're the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour. We go on at noon every day. This is week 15 that we've been on just to bring that healing and that spirit to the people. And so tomorrow is going to be a men's panel with Robert Johnston and Marcus Gwynn, and talking about men's wellness, health. And they're great. They're just great people. And then the next day, Friday is going to be Theta Newbreast and Judith Heilman, and the Black Civil Rights Experience, and Theta's been in this work for a long time. And then I'm not sure it's on Saturday, but Sunday is the Songs from All Nations. And so blessings, all those who are out there who took the time just to come in and listen, and you are a story, you're a storyteller, so continue to tell those stories. So until next time, brothers and sisters, we'll see you. Good night.
Okay.